and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 157, and today's date is September 7th, 2013, and the title of this episode is Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Now, let's get right into the news. We have right now the Greek Prime Minister. He's going around saying that, Greece is turning the page. And we heard the president of France also say this. We hear Merkel saying this. Everyone is on the same page now where they're saying the economy is getting better in the EU. Greece is now saying it, but we have to remember Greece now is on its third bailout. Their unemployment has hit new highs of the youth joblessness rate exceeding 60%. Unemployment overall is 27% plus, expected to go higher. To get this third bailout, they had to lay off 25,000 more people. And I believe it was like 14,000 or 7,000 in the beginning, then another 7,000, and then the rest would have to come next year. Laying off people, putting people out of work, having the percentages of so many people out of work cannot sustain the debt. Yes, in the short term, by adding this debt, it will give them money to play with, but you know what happens when you use up all that money? There's no other money coming in. So it's almost like someone living in a home that has $20,000 in the bank, and then their rent or their mortgage or whatever it is $2,000 a month. That $20,000 will last you a certain period of time until it runs out because you have no other revenue coming in. And that is what's happening here. But if you notice, they're always on the same page telling everyone that everything is okay. Same thing in America. They are telling everyone unemployment is going down. The taper looks good. Stock market, right now it was down on Friday in the red, but it's been very close to 15,000 points. People looking at it, it's up one day, down a little bit the next day. It looks good. Gold isn't rising. They're keeping that slammed down. It rises up a little bit, but then they slam it back down to where they want everyone to believe that everything, the economy is doing well, and that's why gold is not going up. And I've said this before, every time government officials tell you everything is okay, it is always the opposite. They did the same thing during the Great Depression. The president came out, told everyone that we are recovering, things are getting better, it's looking up, and he said this in 1930 or 31, 32, another huge crash in the stock market. Things just got worse. We saw this in 2008. The Fed coming out telling us the subprime is contained. Housing is doing well and will recover, and housing doesn't ever go down. And they are not forecasting a recession in the year of 2008, and he said this in the year of 2008. The president right now is out there campaigning to let everyone know the housing market is getting better. They're out there telling everyone the taper looks good, unemployment is going down, stock market is doing well, and if the economy was actually doing well, government officials do not have to campaign and let everyone know it's doing well, because the people, when things are doing, let's think of this previous. Before 2008, were they ever out there going, woo, jobs are getting better? No, the people know it's getting better because they're employed. People know it's okay, they're buying houses. They don't have to be told this. The only reason they're going around telling everyone is because no one is believing it, and they're trying to convince everyone that things are getting better. Now, it looks like the EU has come back, and they are blaming Assad for the chemical attack. And this goes on to say that 28 EU governments um, allowed France to claim victory in its push to get the EU to agree that Assad was responsible for the attack in which more than 1,400 uh, may have been killed. Again, we don't know these numbers. We don't know if these numbers are correct. John Kerry came out with these numbers. There is no source. There is no way of knowing where he got these numbers. He's never said where these numbers came from. Just like all the evidence they have, it's completely confidential, so we can't show you. We don't know. We have a source who's letting us know this information, but we can't tell you the source. And we received samples of the chemical attack 24 hours after it happened, but we can't tell you the chain of command, and that's all top secret, but nobody can know this. And again, if they had all this evidence, and it was so perfect, and it proves that Assad did this, why didn't they hand this over to England when they were voting? Why didn't they say, here's the evidence that we have. It shows without a doubt that Assad did this. Use this during the voting period to show that he did it. Why didn't they do this? Now, there is a report here from Webster Griffin Tarpley saying that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are bribing U.S. congressmen to approve war on Syria. And we understand that Dianne Feinstein had the CIA, which, I mean, the CIA, I mean, I can make a video up, a DVD up, which she had the CIA make this up, showing the chemical attacks and showing Assad did this. Well, from all the video footage on YouTube and everywhere else, I can make a DVD up rebuting the whole entire DVD that she's passing around. So this DVD, this montage of information, is meaningless. It's basically a show for her to pass around to Congress to show a one-sided story. And it shows nothing. But he goes on to say here that the Saudis and the Qataris are reported to be deploying huge amounts of money for bribery to the families and political and business interests of these members of Congress. And he's saying the Saudis are trying to make Congress vote in a certain way. We also have Nancy Pelosi out there because they are desperate, because what's happening is the report is coming back showing that the House is going to vote this down if they do vote, and I'll get into that in a minute. But they are sending a letter, which this is her 5th letter to the Democratic colleagues. In 1 week, she's been sending 5 of them in an attempt to bolster support for the measure to authorize a U.S. strike in Syria. And what's happening is they are realizing that either Congress is going to vote this down or Congress is not going to vote at all. And they are trying to make the case right now that if Congress doesn't vote or Congress votes no, the president has the authority to do whatever the hell he wants, which he doesn't. Only Congress can declare war. The president cannot strike a sovereign nation which has never attacked the U.S. And right now, Ben Swan was reporting that Congress too cowardly to vote on Syria. And this goes on to say the Congress of the United States has to determine whether or not to support U.S. strikes on Syria. It is called a declaration of war, and it is the job of Congress to either approve or deny military action. The National Review Online is reporting that the congressional aides are saying that the House may not even vote on action in Syria. And right now, a preliminary vote, they are showing 204 no votes. They are only 13 short of the majority needed to kill the president's request. And what's happening, which I believe is happening, is that all these the House of Representatives, they are afraid that if, depending on which way they vote, if they vote no, they will lose campaign funding from certain corporations that sponsor them. And if they vote yes, it will be a backlash from the American people, and they will not get voted in to their next term. So they're sitting here. We're damned if we do, damned if we don't. So guess what we can do? Let's not do it at all. And if they vote no, or they just don't vote at all, how is the president going to get into Syria? And we know that they have been positioning and building this up, not in the last couple of days, for years. They knew what was happening. Iran has always been the grand prize. They've been trying for 25 years plus to get into Iran, and right now they have the ability to go into Syria because they understand that Iran and Syria have a treaty with each other, and Iran would come in and help Syria when this attack happens. And what we're seeing here is that the initial strike that the president wanted to do, which was a limited strike, is no longer on the table. And the reason for that is because over the months they've trained, the U.S. military has trained paid mercenaries in Jordan to go in and overthrow Assad. And the way this was going to work is there was going to be a limited strike on Assad's forces, and these paid mercenaries were going to march in and overthrow Assad with the aid of the U.S., but the U.S. would have no boots on the ground. Assad got wind of this and crushed the paid mercenaries before they even got into Syria. So now the plans for this limited strike are off the table, and now the strike that they need to do is an all-out strike, because what they're looking to do, they're looking to take down Assad's air force, destroy his air bases, knock out his ground-to-ground ballistic missiles. They're going to use B-52 bombers and B-2 stealth bombers to do this. Some of the bombers will even fly in directly from the U.S. They're going to use F-22 Raptor fighter bombers, are also scheduled to take part in this U.S. Air offensive, and they are definitely looking to target the Syrian Army's 4th and Republican Guard divisions, protectors of Assad's presidency and regime. And they are looking to do this and take all of this out, so the rebels that are inside of Syria right now, who are paid mercenaries, who are paid by the CIA or Saudi Arabia, which is indirectly where they get their money from, the U.S. government. So really the U.S. government is paying these rebels to fight and overthrow Assad. So there really is no civil war, because 95% of these paid mercenaries aren't even Syrian. So this is what they're looking to do, and they need a huge strike like this because they do not have the manpower inside Syria at this point, because the other forces were already crushed. And if you notice, the US, the EU, all the private Western central bank controlled countries are only talking about war, because the private central bankers realize that to keep their system running, they need to confiscate every country's natural resources, and those that are selling oil or natural gas put these countries on the US dollar as the reserve currency, and if they do not do this, the system collapses. And they understand this. And this is why they're moving so quickly to do this, because they understand, with all the propaganda and everything that the EU, America, going out there telling us that the economy is doing well, they understand that it's all collapsing around them. China has been selling the treasury bonds. The Fed has to pick up the slack and purchase those. Other foreign nations are starting to sell their treasury bonds, and they understand once this war gets started, these countries are going to start unloading their treasury bonds, and This war is definitely going to be different than Iraq. It's going to be different than Afghanistan. And the president is absolutely right. It's not going to be like those. You know why? Because Russia and China, Iran and Syria are going to hit back. Hit back hard. Russia already has their naval fleet in the same area where the U.S. does. China has sent over ships to that area also. But then again, these central bankers want this. This war, which they're telling everyone will cover up this collapse, it will not make things better. It will just cover it up because they'll be able to print more money. Plus, if China gets involved, they can say, well, we're at war with you now. We don't have to honor these treasury bonds. Same thing with Russia. Same thing with North Korea. Same thing with any other nation that the U.S. is fighting against. So we can see where this is headed. We understand this. The debt is becoming so large in the U.S., in the EU, in every country that it cannot be sustained with any of the tax revenue anymore, and with more and more people underemployed, working part-time jobs, unemployed, the debt, as of right now, cannot be sustained, and they realize this, and this is why they're moving this forward. Now, Janet Napolitano and of DHS and the FBI have come out, and this makes me a little nervous. The government is aware of no credible or specific information that points to any terror plot tied to the anniversary of September 11th, 2001. And according to new confidential threat assessment from FBI and Homeland Security, that they do not see anything on their radar that has to do with terrorist threats within the United States. And we have to realize that the Department of Homeland Security has a terrorist alert system. And I have the link here on the X22 report site. Just go to the current economic collapse news brief, which I'm talking about. Just click on it. It will open up the full page. Scroll down where it says FBI, Homeland Security, say no threats yet tied to 9/11. And just click on THS alert system. It will bring you to the DHS site. And that alert system is always blank. It was blank during the Boston bombing. Hey, guess what? They didn't see any threats during that period either. You know, and even if they do see a threat, they don't tell anyone until after the fact, saying they heard chatter. So it's very difficult to believe what they say, especially when they're the ones who are really causing it. But again, when you hear them say there are no credible threats, we're about to get into war with Syria. The Syrian Electronic Army is attacking different websites that they keep reporting on. Iran is making threats. Nuclear weapons are being moved. And they're saying that the Muslim hackers are going to attack the U.S., and they believe that special Iranian groups are already in the U.S. and could carry out a bomb attack somewhere in the U.S. But they don't see any threats right now, which makes me very nervous because it makes no sense to me. Now, this also goes on to say the threat has become more spread out now, more difficult. More means could be used, said Hamilton, who currently co-heads the Washington-based Bipartisan Policy Center, which plans to release a report on Monday on the terror threats to the U.S. And they're saying it's very difficult now to identify particular individuals who might turn violent. And it's very, very hard to do so at this point because it's a big country. So you're telling me with all this spying, with all the information and all the freedoms that we gave over to them because of 9/11, they can't figure out anything. So what was this all for? I guess it's not to catch terrorists. It's to keep an eye on the American people. It's to keep an eye on domestic terrorists, because Janet Napolitano has also come out saying that homegrown radicals like the Boston Marathon bombers may be just as much of a threat to the U.S. as international jihadists. So she's putting homegrown U.S. citizens in the same category as the jihadist terrorists. And what she goes on to say is, what we can do is be always thinking about threats we could confront, but she also added, there are no 100% guarantees in this business. So what is she saying? She's also given us a warning that there's going to be a cyber attack very soon, most likely on the financial institutions or on the power infrastructure, and they're saying that she can't be 100% sure. Something can always slip through their huge net of catching people, and it seems like they are trying to, say nothing's wrong here, and then lead us into a complete false flag to get this war started. And just this Friday, after the FBI on Thursday said they see no threat, they come out with this. The FBI strengthened on Friday its warning to businesses that a hacking group loyal to the government of Syria might intensify its internet attacks as the United States waged military strikes in that country. So on Thursday, they say they see nothing. The next day, no real threat warning, but they're just strengthening their warnings right now. And you can see where this is going. And it goes on to say that the possibility of a U.S. military action in Syria may lead to further escalation of computer network operations by pro-Syrian or other aligned cyber actors. And they're trying to bring in Iran into this. They're bringing Syria because they know the Congress will vote no if they vote. If they don't vote, the president will need something to go into Syria, because if he just bypasses the Constitution, it is a war crime. And listen, he can do it if he wants, but with the American people saying no to this war, Congress, who can't even vote, and if they did vote, it would be a no, unless, of course, the NSA is blackmailing and Saudi Arabia and Qatar are bribing them and they convince them to vote yes. But otherwise, right now it's a no, or they're not going to vote at all. The president is going to look really foolish because the American people do not agree with him. So they're going to need some type of false flag. Now, what could that be? It could be they had reports of Iranians running around with fast speedboats in the Mediterranean, and they could hit one of the ships. Well, this would give the opportunity to go into Iran now. It could be a Syrian-Iran joint force that did this. I mean, there could be Israel already shot a missile towards Syria, but again, that was just a test, or someone on one of the military ships shot it down because they didn't get the memo, but it fell into the water. Or there could be an attack at home, which is the United States, where I'm talking about, where it would change the minds of Congress, it would change the minds of the people, and at this point, if there was some type of small nuclear explosion or some type of chemical weapon used, or a cyber attack on the financial institutions, this could be used as the United States was attacked. The president then could go to Congress and say, I'd like you to vote, and they would vote yes at this point, or the president go ahead and bypass the Congress completely. Now, any of these situations come up. I don't know if the chemical weapons one would be used, because why, again, would Assad use chemical weapons if he invited people into his country? At this point, it wouldn't make any sense, because there's way too much. There's experts out there. There's other reports out there, hard evidence saying it was definitely the rebels. The United States hasn't produced anything. It's all hearsay. It's all montage videos on DVD, and there's really nothing out there that's substantial. So something is going to definitely happen. We have to remember the whole Congress comes back on the 9th. President is giving a speech on Tuesday. He's going to use his charm. He's going to let everyone know why we have to do this, how Assad is terrible, and the chemical weapons were definitely him. He'll show no evidence. Maybe they'll show some videos that they put together, but it will be nothing substantial because there's always videos that counter what he's saying, so there will be no real evidence. The UN has not come back with any evidence if chemical weapons were actually even used at this point. But again, that is their only mandate. They are not going to point fingers at either side. And just because if they do come back and say, yes, chemical weapons were used, it doesn't mean that Assad used them, and it doesn't mean that the rebels used them, because it just says chemical weapons were used. And you can put it to any side if you want, but it's not real evidence. But I would say we are definitely going to look and see some type of an event happen, and we will have to wait and see what it is. And once we see, this war will begin, and this is going to be definitely different than Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, because we can see it building up. We can see them putting the pieces where they want them. They're strategically moving everything to get ready for this. This is not something where it just happened just to happen. The G20 didn't go that well with the case of Syria. And really, the central bankers have no choice whatsoever but to do this, and that's all they know is we need to get in here, we need to get in here, and now is the time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.